certain type blood?
Okay, Rabbi, good evening. So we're going to discuss tonight more Pirkeh Avot, right? This is the most important topic matter for us at this time of year, as we already mentioned. So, right, one of the things that we find, it says in Pirkeh Avot, in Perek Sheni, the second chapter, it says, right, Rabbi Shimon Omer, Rabbi Shimon says. By the way, when we hear the word Rabbi Shimon in the Mishnah, which Rabbi Shimon is that, right? There could be many Shimons. That Shimon, this Shimon. Stam, when it says, right, regular Rabbi Shimon, it's talking about Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai. The great, the Kabbalist, the famous one, right? One of the famous Tanaim that we ever had, one of the great rabbis that we ever had. So we're talking about Rabbi Shimon. So it says over here like this: Haloveh ve'eno meshalem, right? It's talking about what? That what's considered to be echad haloveh min adam keloveh min hamakom shenemar loveh rasha ve'lo yishalem. So it says Rabbi Shimon, one of the worst things, right, that a person can do is that he borrows money and doesn't pay back. Considered to be a big no-no.
It could be a blessing,
right? So. Why is this so bad? Because, when a person, we already mentioned this before in one of the classes, that when a person borrows, doesn't pay back, he's considered to be a gazlan. It's like a thief, like you stole. Because, it's like, where's the money? Give me back my money. I borrowed, I borrowed. You gotta give it back now.
Even from a bank, from a greedy bank.
We have to discuss that. That's a very good question, by the way. I just want to make the simple idea, and then we'll discuss also this thing.
Not from a user discusses. What about if the business goes belly up?
Right, it's true what you're saying. It's true what you're saying. So let's discuss a little bit, right? A little bit this idea.
That has to do with usury.
Okay, yeah, we talked about that also, right? I remember you mentioned that. So the question is like this, right? So what are we really talking about? So it says in the Tehillim, right, like this, right? That lo rasha ve'lo yishalem, right? A person, rasha, what does that mean? The person who does this is wicked. The rasha, he's a rasha. What does that mean? He borrows money and he doesn't pay back. He's considered to be a rasha. As we said, he's a gazlan, he's a thief. So the question is why? What's the reason? The reason is like this, right? That when a person borrows money, he has to be realistic about what he's doing. This is, by the way, what caused the big financial downfall that we had, 15 years ago with Bush. This was the reason why.
What? Nobody wanted to pay.
Because they were giving mortgages too easily. People were borrowing money like left and right. The banks were giving money.
In that case, let's go back to the Great Depression.
Okay, that's also good, right? But I'm talking about my lifetime, right? Whatever I remember, You know how young I am, right? I'm a young little teenager,
That
so.
was under Bill Clinton, though.
Oh.
Bill Clinton approved the law.
That's when it started. Yeah, that's when it started. Yes, okay. But it ended with Bush, right? That's where it ended. That was the last final destination. Right? Okay, very good. You got the idea. So that's exactly the point, right? That this is considered to be a wicked person. What does that mean? What were they doing in America? They were lending money to people who had really no realistic way to repay the money. Just take it and we'll see what happens. What do you mean we'll see what happens? What kind of thing is that, right? You can't lend money to a person, if you're a rational bank, you're a rational lender, you can't lend money that you don't even know he can pay back this money. You're putting him into like a pitfall, and you're also yourself you're putting into a pitfall. So in both ways, right? So this is exactly like what we're talking about over here. We're talking about a person who borrows money, and realistically speaking, if he looks at how much money he makes every year, how much income he has, whatever it is, he's not going to be realistically able to pay that back money. He's not going to be able to repay because he doesn't have the budget for it.
But I think they looked at all that.
Right. Question is, are we looking at it? Right. When you go and borrow money, you have to look at that. You understand? That's the issue. So what does that mean? You have to realistically say, right? Okay, listen. If I take a loan now, okay, the bank's going to tell me, right? Whatever was going to tell me, somebody, I have to pay back every month. Let's say $400, right, to pay back, or $1,000, let's say, if it's a bigger loan, whatever, right? This is exactly, by the way, the problem also we have with student loans. People are going to college, right, and getting into financial trouble. Most people don't even repay these loans ever in their life. That's what happens.
No, they must repay. It's the law.
Yeah, but they don't. They're being chased all their life.
Then they can't get credit.
You understand? Oh, yes, all kinds of issues there. But the point is like this, right, that when a person borrows money, you have to realistically say, can I pay back every month $400? Do I have that money? Is it in my budget or not? If it's not in your budget and you're borrowing that money because now you want to have a good time, and then we'll see what happens later. So so you're relying on a miracle, right? Like you said, right? That's not allowed to do. That's SCA. You understand? When you borrow money, don't rely on miracles. Be realistic. Know what your budget is. Know what your abilities are. Don't say, maybe 6 months later I'll get a better job and then I'll be able to repay more. How do you know? Who told you? What are you, prophet?
Isn't all of Israel living like that, though? People
I think the whole world is living like that. That's the problem. You understand? When the whole world is living like this, People have credit card money that they owe and all kinds of things, right? This money and that money, these loans and student loans and right, all kinds of car loans and this and that, whatever it is, right? Or business loans also, right? You know, right?
That run all the banks in there, they're private banks in the United States.
Oh. That's a famous thing, right? This whole the whole story over there. But so the point is like this about time. When a person borrows money, you're a logical, rational person. You should know what your budget is. Be realistic. Take a look at what's going on. What are the numbers? Don't just rely on miracles and say, "Oh yeah, it'll be okay." How do you know it's going to be okay? Who told you? How do you know it's going to be okay? What do you rely on a miracle? What you cannot rely on miracles, right? That's the idea. So this is exactly what we're saying, Rabbi, that a person who behaves this way, he's called a rasha. Ubeduria, so a person who's
So you can't even say Hashem will take care of it?
No, because you have a certain lifestyle that you live. What makes you think that it's going to change in 6 months or a year or whatever? What makes you think that? Where do you get such a thing like this, right? From the top of your head.
How much do you believe in God?
Regarding the truth is, right, that when you owe the money, regardless of who you owe the money to, whether it's a Jew or a non-Jew, you have to repay the money. You know what I mean? So okay, this is the idea of it. So a person has to watch out for these kinds of things. There's also, by the way, another thing which is similar to this idea. I want to mention to you. Right?
Does that apply to Georgians as well? Because it's part of
Georgian Jews.
Remember the movie A Bronx Tale? And what did he say? Hey, where's my money? You ought to put $20. He's running down the street, he runs away. So the mafia guy tells him, he'll say, see, don't worry about it. A guy like that you don't need. Be glad that he took your money. He's never going to talk to you again.
Right. One of the biggest prohibitions of the Torah, one of the most severe, is taking money on interest. To lend money on interest or to borrow on interest also. When a person does that, right, the borrower also transgresses a sin, and also the lender. They both transgress. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So you can't say, "Oh, I'm a borrower." It's not. I don't have the problem. He's got the problem.
No. Is it only through Jews or?
From a goy you can do it. Yes. From a goy, from a bank you can borrow with interest. Yes.
But Jews are running the banks.
Well, yeah, but
technical. No, let's go.
Right. No, it's actually a very good question he's asking. You know why? I'll tell you why. Because the truth is that even though there are Jews who are owners of that bank partially or whatever it is, right? Let's say they have stocks, they have shares in the bank, but nevertheless, since it's a conglomeration of several people, right? It's a big group of people, so we don't consider that to be a Jewish bank if there's some Jewish owners. So therefore, in a case like that, it will be okay, But when you have let's say an Israeli bank, which is totally Jewish, so that's already a different story, right? There, it's a Jewish bank altogether. Most of the banks in Israel are owned by Jews. 90% of the banks are owned by Jews.
And you really expect your average bank in Israel not to lend people money?
So you know what they do? There's something called heter iska. You know what that means? That all the banks that are lending money in Israel are doing it through a permitted way in halakha. There's a permission. How is that? How is that done? They turn the loan into an investment, like a investment deal. Technically speaking, it's set up as an investment. So therefore, right. And since you're doing it as an investment, even though it's really the same thing, basically, practically speaking, it's all the same. But since it's set up as an investment kind of thing, so therefore it's allowed to do that, right? But if you don't set it up that way, so you got a problem,
For a business, it's okay if you're making a business.
It doesn't matter whether it's a business or right. You're setting it up as a business. That's the idea. Yeah, you're setting it up as a business.
That it should make its own money.
But the truth is, right, that you're paying back the money just like any other loan. That's no practical difference there. But it's just set up that way. It's a different mechanism. So in a case like that, it is allowed to do it this way. But as we said, right, one of the biggest prohibitions in the Torah is rebit, is interest. So why do I tell you this? Right? They say there's two types of interest, by the way, in halakha, in Jewish law. There's interest which is set up before the loan is done. In other words, everything is pre-planned. Everything is set up, contract. You're going to pay me back 3%, 4%, whatever is 12%, right? If the credit card companies are taking 20%, whatever it is, right? They're taking a lot more. Credit card companies, they're really tough. The credit card companies are taking too much.
30%,
right? Whatever it is, right? It's too much. It's way too much, too high. But nevertheless, right? Whatever it is, whatever interest you have in an arrangement that you have. So what happens is like this, right? That what was I saying? So as we said, right? Yeah. So right, interest. So the point is like this, right? That a person has this kind of interest, which is from the Torah. This is from the Torah. this kind of interest. Everything is set up before the transaction is done.
So that's permitted.
That's the worst. That's the worst, right? That's prohibited from the Torah. But there's also another kind of interest which is rabbinically prohibited. But from the Torah, it's allowed. What is that? We're talking about that you didn't set up the whole numbers before the loan was done, but then later on you pay. It wasn't premeditated. It wasn't predetermined. So in a case like that, since it wasn't predetermined, the interest, so there the Torah allows that, but the rabbis also disqualified that as well. But what's the practical difference, right? Whether it's this or that, the practical difference is, they say, right, that if a person, let's say, for instance, on Shabbat, he doesn't have enough money to make Shabbat, to buy all the things that he wants to buy, do a nice spread, right? So, okay, you're right, as we said, right, you can borrow. So there, right, they allow you even to borrow on interest. What does that mean? Interest, which is rabbinical. Right? If you do it the rabbinical way, not everything is done beforehand, right? All the arrangements are maybe. So there you can. The rabbis waived the prohibition here because of the mitzvah of Shabbat, on Shabbat.
You get some dough. Come on, Rabbi. Is that what it is? You have to give
I know, nobody's giving me anything. I can't tell you.
Because you have to give to the temple and give a tithe or something?
God bless you. No. Not connected to that. So two different channels.
That makes it nice and okay? Makes it okay?
No, that's something else. So as we said, right, that a person is allowed to take rabbinical interest in order to do Shabbat. Can you imagine? They waived the prohibition on that. But the question is like this, right? Even though they waived this prohibition when it comes to Shabbat, but the question is, are you allowed to borrow for the sake of Shabbat? Should you borrow like as we said, more money than you can ever pay back? Or should you borrow whatever you think you can pay back, rationally speaking? According to your income, according to your situation. So the truth is, we have two opinions on that, right? We have the Gaon of Vilna. So the Gaon of Vilna says for Shabbat you can borrow even more than you can afford.
Oh.
Right? So what's the reason why? Because there, HaKadosh Baruch Hu guarantees you is going to pay you back. If you borrowed for Shabbat, you're guaranteed to be paid back.
What about next Shabbat?
It's a guarantee from God, stamp approval. So therefore, right, whatever it is.
What about every Shabbat after that?
Any Shabbat. Doesn't make any difference. Well, could be all year like that.
You can't pay it back.
Right, so HaKadosh Baruch Hu will, you understand, guarantees you to pay you back on that. Why? Because you're doing it for His sake, for the sake of Shabbat,
But if you're talking about a bank, hold on, you're talking about a bank and you talk about God.
Well, this kind of loan is not going to be usually with a bank. It's going to be with a private, your friend, your neighbor, whatever, something like that, right? The guy whatever, That's the idea. But the point is, Rabbi, that there is also another opinion, right? That Moreno Rabbeinu Maran Alav Shalom, my rabbi, he writes in his books. He also brings other sources as well. That really the truth is, even in this case, you shouldn't borrow more than his means, because even though Kadosh Baruch Hu promised you to pay you back, that doesn't mean that you should now rely on a miracle. That you should. He promised you, but within your budget. Within your right abilities. Right, exactly. So therefore, right, we do have actually in machloket. We have two different opinions.
I'll go with that one.
But when it comes to you like that, okay, good. Okay. I can hear that. I can hear that.
You're just taking advantage.
But the point is, Rabbi, that nevertheless, right, when it comes to just a regular loan, which is not for Shabbat, so everybody agrees, right, that don't borrow more than your means. Don't expect you're going to have some kind of miracle. This is the idea. This is what Pirkeh Avot is telling us. Okay. Also, I want to tell you another thing here, interesting. The wisdom of the Pirkeh Avot is very great. So I'll tell you something very interesting. And what do you want to say? I'm sorry.
Does anybody really expect the Torah, the guide to life, to tell people that they should live above their means? I mean, it only makes sense that the Torah will dictate.
I agree with you, 100%. I agree with you.
I mean,
okay, we think alike, Okay.
It's like a phony kind of thing there, right?
No, it's not that
Okay. But there are some dreamers. You know how it is, right? In fact, this country was all dreamers.
Well,
that's what it was. We were all dreamers over here.
The Torah deters. Is supposed to try to deter.
Right, exactly. That's the idea. Yes. Okay, so again, we want to say also another thing, which is very powerful. We're talking now about Hillel, right? So Hillel tells us.
Does the Torah mention about Obama bailing out banks and destroying people's lives?
Well, you're not going over my head. What can I tell you? Or under my head, whatever it is. So, who haya omer? Marbe basar, marbe rima, right? So it says, wow, it's something amazing, right? That if a person is marbe basar, you know what that means? He eats a lot of a meat, or he is also another way to look at it is right that he becomes fat. Right? He has a lot of flesh, becomes very fleshy. Fatso. Fatso. That's it. Becomes nice and round, like a big ball, whatever. Some one of these guys, right? Whatever. Everybody according to his ability, right? There are some people who are more than others. You know how it is, right? Okay, we got the idea. So it tells you, right, that if you do that, if you become fat, what is the outcome of this? In other words, according to the Torah's outlook, where do you make?
No, but the thing is like this.
Where are you going with that?
The thing is like this. It's like the people that are getting food stamps, right?
Yeah.
Right, or the welfare, right? So what it is, these are the fattest people around. They don't look like they're starving.
Okay.
Right? You know what I'm saying?
Not all.
Okay.
Not all of them, but
Anyway,
a lot of them.
what's the outcome of this, right? It tells you it's marberima. That's all. That's the only thing. If you have a lot of flesh, if you're fat, the only thing will happen is there's going to be also a lot of rima. What's rima? What does that mean?
I don't know.
You know what that means?
No.
Want to guess? It's the name of a worm.
A worm.
What does that mean? You're going to have a lot of worms eating you when you go into the grave. They're going to have more dinner from your body. That's the only thing. That's the only thing that you have.
More pain.
You understand? That's the idea.
More
Yeah,
pain.
it's painful. It's painful. Yeah. Even when a person is dead, by the way, it causes them pain when the worms eat him.
How
That's
long
what
does
happens.
that take before the pain
That's
goes
what
away?
happens.
How long does that take?
Huh?
How long does that take before the pain goes
Oh, I think it's like a year.
I would assume that
Oh, that's
Yeah.
why they would tell you.
Torah
Yeah,
would
it's
try
a year.
to
Yeah.
stop you from being obese in this world.
Right.
Because you have a lot of pain
So
from being.
what we're trying to say is like this, right? That even though Jimmy's right, the truth is now there's also health risks involved. The doctors are saying now, but in the old days it wasn't like that. Actually, being heavy was considered to be like you're stronger, more powerful, more mighty person, right? It was a different time.
That is simple also.
Well, that's true. That's true. Yes. So nevertheless, right? Whatever you say, Rabbi, the idea is that there's nothing to gain by having a lot of flesh. The only thing is to gain is they're going to eat you more. So what does that mean? That you haven't really accomplished much, So
waste.
what does that mean? Don't think that it's some kind of prerogative. It's a good thing to be to be fleshy and fat, and to eat a lot. There's nothing good about that. There's really nothing. You're not going to gain anything by
The waste of
that.
food.
Yeah, it's also true. Whatever. You understand? You get the point. So right, it says another thing, right? Marbe nechasim, marbe deaga. This one is even more powerful, right? So this one says like this, right? If you have a lot of assets, and wealth and properties, things like this, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So what are you going to get from that? What's going to be the outcome? Right? You're going to be marbe deaga. You know what that means? A lot of worries. The more assets that a person has, he has to worry more.
Yeah.
What does that mean, right? What happened to this business? What happened to that property? What's going on in New Jersey? What's going on in Panama, right? I have properties over there. I have businesses over here. So all day this guy's like worried. Oh my God, what happened to over there? What happened over there, right? Did I lose over there? Did I gain over there? So they say, right, that the only thing that happens to a person who has a lot of assets is that he has a lot of worries. That's what usually comes out.
But nobody wants to go to unemployment line also.
Oh, good question, right? That's very good. It's a good comment. Why do I say that? Because it's talking about what? That there are people who make enough money to survive and to support their family. Everything should be good. But there are people who are very greedy. They want always more than that. They're not satisfied with just making a good living. You know what I mean? They want to have their multi-millions and billions. They're going for the big for broke. You know what I mean? They're going for the big leagues. You know what I mean? So you should know that if you go for the big leagues, you become a big shot in business, the only thing you'll get is more worries. That's the only thing you're going to get. You understand? In other words, you're not going to have a better life. You're going to have a worse life. So you see from there, Rabbi, that a person has to know that being a big businessman, big tycoon, is not something which is very desirable. It's not really something, right, you should be, right, look forward. You should not be, Okay, fine. But meanwhile, right, the problem is that when a person has too many assets, all the time they're bothering him, they're calling him this, that, he's worried about this, he's worried about that. He had a fight with this guy. Right, what was Trump, right, the president, he has two favorite pastimes, before he became president.
Golfing.
Right.
And women.
You know what they were, right?
Golfing and women.
I have a different list,
Okay.
right? You know what they were, right?
No.
One was firing people. He loved firing people. You're fired, he loved that, right? You know that, right? It's a big joke, right?
Being a boss.
He knows a joke himself. It's nothing new for him, right? You're fired. That was one big pastime. The other one was what? Suing people. I'm suing you.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Okay, it's money to-
Always litigation. Why is that? Because when you're in business, you have holdings over here and there. Always you're in litigation. There's, you're complaining about this guy. You have a problem with this guy. He's suing you. You're suing him. This and that. You know how much worry that is? That all the time you're worried about these things, and you have to speak to the lawyers. And this happened and this happened, and we lost over here and we gained over here. It's like, a person can like totally, can kill a person. These worries, have a heart attack from these things. It's a terrible life, to live like that. It's not a good life. That's what I'm trying to tell you, Pirkeh Avot. On the one hand, having a good parnasah is very good, but don't try to be like a big tycoon, conquer the whole world. You think you're going to get something from that? There's nothing you're going to get from that. Just a lot of worries.
Don't be full of yourself.
Right? Our friend over here who was the big tycoon over here, right? Temuri, you remember him, right? Temuri, what happened to him? He died. He had a heart attack, something, stroke. He died. He died young. Right? But from what? From this kind of life, living this kind of life.
Worries.
What do you think he died from?
Worries.
Worries all the time. Yeah, that's what it is. That's what killed him. All the time you have big headaches over here. That's the way that the life is like that.
Worrying for?
Okay, you have to understand it. Okay, so next one, Rabbi, right? Marbe nashim and marbe cheshafim.
That's a good one.
You like that one? Okay. So, what is it saying, right? That a person can pick up several types of lifestyles. One is to have one wife, like a normal guy, and some guys also have like a girlfriend on the side. You know how it is, right? They want to have that girlfriend on the side. Okay, so they have one or two. You know how it is, right? In this world, I'm not recommending you should do that, by the way. I'm just telling you that's the situation. But there are also guys, who want to have like multiple, relationships, right? What is that called? Polyamorous. They're polyamorous, right?
Polygamy.
That's a different story. They're getting married to a lot of people. That's polyamorous means that they have a lot of lovers, this kind of thing. So here, right, a person like that, a person who likes to have many women, he wants to taste this one, he wants to taste that, taste of this, taste of that, this kind of woman, Chinese, Japanese, this and that, right? He wants this one now. He wants to taste this. He wants to get a taste of everything.
Worldwide.
So what really happens to a person like this, right? The Zohar tells you, right? Marbeh cheshafim, right? What does that mean? He multiplies what? He has a lot of sorcery. What does that mean? That what happens that with women is like they're jadosnevi, they like to do jado. So what happens is, right, that now since you have a lot of girlfriends, since you have a lot of lovers and this kind of thing, so each one of them is trying to make you like fall in love with her more than everybody else. That's the idea. That's their whole they want to trap you in their web. You understand? So therefore they use sorcery in order to get you. Because there are all kinds of types of sorcery that a person can get somebody to fall in love with him. You know how it is, right? These things, right? People who do these kinds of things. So this is what happens, right? You understand? When a person gets involved with a lot of women, there's going to be also sorcery going around there. So what does he care about that? Because he may also get hit with that. You understand? Sorcery is very dangerous. A person can die from sorcery. Understand? That's the idea. So therefore, right? Yeah, sure. Yeah, it's a fact. What can you do? So therefore, a person has to be careful. Don't try to play around with too many women. You know why? Because they play dirty in order to get you. Yeah. So they do sorcery in order to trap the guy. That's the idea. Okay, Rabotai. Next one, right? Marbe shefachot marbe zima. Oh, so what is it telling you, right? That there are people who are wealthy, and because of that, they have like a staff of people working for them. The butler, the maid, right? The downstairs maid, the upstairs maid, right? This and that, the laundry lady, this, that, right?
Boy.
Nice, staff. Everyone, they're also wearing uniforms, maybe, nice spiffy uniforms. And they're coming and say, what can I do for you, sir? This kind of thing, right? What can I do for you now, right? What's the next task? Or whatever, right? This kind of life. There are people who live like that. You know how it is, right? There are people who have they're employing 100 people. Just in their personal life. I'm not talking about their business. I'm talking about personally. They have 100 people. They have this. They have the lawyers. They have the maids. The this and that. All kinds of stuff. The trainers, right? All this, therapists. Psychoanalysts. This kind of that. That's how it is, right? They have the whole thing working for them. Whole system working for them. So the idea is like this, right? That they say that if a person has lots of maid servants, right? We're talking about females, right? So what happens? They're marbezima. What does that mean? That makes a lot of promiscuous relations going on. You know what I mean? Because these ladies who are working as maid servants, they're usually promiscuous. They're very, they try to, if you try to do something with them, they'll be okay with that. They usually don't mind. So therefore, right? So when you have many of these maid servants, it's also going to be a lot of illicit relations going on. That's the idea. You understand? That's the idea. Okay, that's the next one, right? Marbe avadim, marbe gazel. So it says, what about if you have the male servants, right? We talked about the females. Now we're talking about the males.
How you are. Fruitcake and
Okay. So what happens with that, right? If you have a lot of butlers, a lot of this, the driver, the butler, this guy, that guy, everyone. What happens over there, right? So it says marbe gazel, right? What does that mean? That makes a lot of theft, theft. What does that mean, a lot of theft? Because usually slaves, right? We're not talking about today's people. There are also today's people like that, as well. But we're talking about in the old days, right? These slaves who were, serving their masters, they usually were all thieves. If you look around, turn around, you turn back and it's gone. That your object is gone, right? Your watch is gone. This is gone. Right? They steal. That's the way it is. You understand? These people are usually thieves. So therefore, right? They say if you have a big staff of slaves working for you today, Baruch Hashem, you don't have slavery. You don't have to worry so much about this. But nevertheless, right? That if a person has a lot of slaves, there's also a lot of theft that goes on. That's the idea. You understand? Okay, very good. So, right? What about if he's marbet Torah, right? He does a lot of Torah. What about if he does that, right? What does he get from that, right? So he says marbet hayim, right? That means he multiplies life. The more Torah there is, the more life there is. That's the idea. By the way, they say that the Torah is what is it called? It's called the tree of life, right? Etz HaChaim. That's what it's called. What does that mean? That whoever hangs on to the Torah, he's alive, he's living, because all the life comes from there. The source of life is from Torah. So if you have Torah, you have life. You're connected. Once you disconnect, you take the cord out. That's it. You lost your life because all life comes from there. So a person who's disconnected from the Torah, where is his life? Right? He's like a living zombie. This guy. You understand? That's the idea. So therefore, a person has to try to be in Torah as much as possible. You know why? Because that's what gives them a lot of life. That's the idea. Okay. Now, I want to talk a little bit about the issue of talking too much. So what are the sages say about that? What's the So it says like this. Shimon ben Omer, right? Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel. This is also in the first parak. It says something very powerful. It says Kol yamai gadalti ben hachachamim velo matzati laguf tov ela shtika. It says all my life I was raised amongst scholars, Torah scholars, rabbis. He says one thing I saw, that nothing is as good for the body of the person like being silent, being quiet. Nothing is as good as that. Nothing beats that, right? So it goes on to say, so it says whoever speaks a lot, it's going to bring him into sin, right? Why is that? What's the reason why speech brings you into sin? Because most of the speech, right, that a person does, a lot of speech is sinful. Lashon hara, right, all kinds of things like this, or dirty words, right, curse words, 4-letter words, things like this. This is also sinful. A person speaks, dirty language, filthy stuff. He speaks filthy.
Medically speaking?
I'm sorry?
What about medically speaking?
What about?
Medically speaking.
Well, if he's a doctor, he's a doctor, whatever.
Say dirty things, but medically speaking.
So that's something else. Right, but we're saying like this, Avatai, that a person, right, if he really wants to avoid sinning, you should know that most sin comes from speech. Lashon hara, motzi shem ra, right, all kinds of things like this, dirty words, all kinds of things, lies also, right, speaking lies, deception, right, all kinds of things. Most of the sins come from there. So therefore, if a person really wants to keep his body healthy and his soul healthy,
Keep your mouth shut.
that's it. That's
Don't
the
eat
idea.
too much and keep your mouth shut.
The rabbis in the Gemara, Masechet Megillah, they say, right, allegory about this, mashal. They say, right, that if a person says something good, a good word, right, something that needs to be said, in the proper place, so it's worth 1 gold coin, right? But if he's quiet, it's worth 2. So meaning what? That even though saying something good is also very, very worthwhile, but being quiet is twice as worthwhile as saying something good. So you see, right? Everything has a relative value. That's the idea. The sages are telling you, right? That's the. Okay, very good. So again, right? I want to tell you another thing which is also related to that. This is said by Yosef ben Yochanan. He says over here, right? Right? This is probably the most severe out of all these things, right? It says, don't talk too much with the women. Talking with women is the most dangerous thing. Having a big conversation with them, long conversations, this, that, all kinds of stuff. right? So the question is, when we talk about that, who are we talking about? Are we talking about a strange woman, or let's say a woman who's like not your wife, somebody else's wife? So there, the sin is even more severe. We're not even talking about that. We're talking about your own wife. That's what we're saying over here. Understand? All the more so if he's talking with somebody else's wife. That he shouldn't be doing at all, right? You shouldn't even say more than 2 words to her. Just like the minimum possible, right? You know the story, right? There's a story about this that they say at one time, Rabbi Yossi Galili, right, one of the Tanaim. So he was traveling on the road, going from the south to the north of Eretz Israel, to the north, going to the north, right? So he wanted to get to Tiberia, right, which is Tiberias. Yeah, beautiful, beautiful town, right? Gorgeous town. So what happens is, right, that he's looking for the road that goes to Tiberias, to Tiberia, So he sees over there on the crossroads, he sees over there Bruria, right? Who was Bruria? Bruria was the wife of Rabbi Meir. And she herself was also a big scholar, big Talmid Chacham, this lady. It's rare that we find something like that, but she was a big scholar, this lady. So what happened was that because she was so knowledgeable, right? So comes Rabbi Yossi Galili, he sees her, right? And he asks her, he says, which way to Tiberia? He asks her, which way do I go? So what does she do, right? Instead of giving her an answer, what does she do? She gives him a nice big kick, right? Kicks him. Bach! Can you imagine? Lady kicking you? And she's also a rabbi, A rabbi lady kicking him. So she kicked him, right? He says, Tipsha Galila. That's what she told him, right? You're a foolish Galilean, right? You come from the Galilee. That's where he came from. That's why he called him Rabbi Yossi Galili. So he says, why am I stupid? What did I do? What did I do wrong? He says, what did I want? What's my sin? So he says, don't you know, it says in Pirkeh Avot, Al tarbeh sichai ma'isha, don't say too many words to a woman. So he told her, right? He told him like this, why did you come and ask me this question, right? Which way to Tiberia? Can you imagine such a thing as this? So Rabbi Yossi Galili, looks at her, says, excuse me, but I need to know how to get there. What's the problem, This was not just, talking, gossiping with you, right, or some kind of a personal, discourse, whatever. It was just something, I wanted to ask you which way to go. What's the problem with that?
There was nobody else on the road?
I guess there was nobody else,
So he had no choice.
So, right, he had no choice, right. So that's the idea, So he was astonished. He's like, what's going on here? So you know what he answered? She answered him. He says, you fool. He says, you said 3 words. Which way to Tiberia? You should have said 2 words, he says. You could have said 2. Which to Tiberia? You shouldn't have to say which way. Right? So he said, 1 extra word, that's why I kicked you. Can you imagine how zealous they were in those days? They were zealots, Today, if we did this kind of thing, we'd be in the jail. We'd up in jail. You understand?
Sharia.
So, can you imagine Sharia law, right? This is not Sharia, this is the God law, right? The Sharia law is made from man. That's something else.
It's
man-made.
He say, hi, how are you? She would have
broken his.
Which way we going?
She was probably a black belt, I'm assuming, she was black belt probably. Okay, so whatever. Anyway, the point is, Rabbi, we see also from that story, right, how severe it is. So here it comes and tells you, right, that a person, even with his own wife, shouldn't say too much. So what does that mean, right? What, you don't want to talk, you shouldn't talk to your wife? How can you keep such a thing like that, right? Who's going to stay with you like that? Which wife is going to stay with you, right, if you don't talk with her?
The one with no tongue.
She's gonna run away. She's gonna run off from you. Okay, that's good. That's good. So, question, very good, very good. But that's the question, right? Really, the truth is, what kind of thing is this? I shouldn't talk to my wife. How can I? She's not gonna be able to live with me like that. So we're not saying you shouldn't talk with her at all. What we're saying is that keep it down to a minimum. Don't start getting into all kinds of, right? Too much, too comprehensive.
Is there a motel there?
So the question is like this, right? That what's the problem with that, by the way? The truth is that you can read this, several times and say, what is it talking about here? What are we talking about? What's the problem if I talk to my wife, a little bit, get into some philosophy discussion with her, or something like that, or get into like a little argument,
Debate.
my opinion, your opinion, this and that. You know how it is, right? Ladies like to. The ladies know they know how to argue. You know how it is, right? They have no problem with that. They're always right. Exactly right.
They want the argument.
So give in right away from the beginning, right? Don't even argue, right? Because they're always right. But the thing is like this, right? That it's really a question. What are we talking about over here? So the answer is like this over time. The truth is that it's not really good to speak to women regarding all kinds of deep subjects and all kinds of things like this, even if it's your wife. You know why? Because women have a different approach in their outlook. They have a different outlook in life. They have a different way of speaking. It's a different pattern.
Interpreting.
Right. Interpreting, speaking, understanding. Right. It's a different system altogether. And this is why the Chazal say, by the way, they say that the man and the woman, it's two different nations. It's like two different. We're not the same. Men and women are different people. You know what I mean? So you shouldn't think, because she's my wife, she's like me. She's not like you. She's different than you. She's not the same as you. A woman is a woman. A man is a man. Two different things. So a person has to understand that in order to not to cause misunderstandings. Because once you start talking too much, it'll lead to an argument. Some lashon hara, arguing, and then she'll get insulted because you said something a little bit, under the belt. You hit her under the belt a little bit. Pach. You know how it is, right? And they're very sensitive about that. You said that to me? No, shame on you, right? She won't forgive you for how long? For 10 years she won't forgive you. Right? Such a thing like that. Understand? This is what we're talking about. Mm-hmm. So a person has to know that when you start talking too much to a woman, it leads to strife with the woman. Come to argument. You understand? This is the idea. So this is going to also create a problem with shalom bayit, right? With the harmony in the house. You talk too much.
You're saying talk too much.
Don't talk
arguing with them, or
no, don't talk at all.
It leads to arguments. That's what happens. Once you start talking too much, you start talking things that you don't need to say to her. Just superficial things.
Don't talk to them.
Superficial, things which are not need to be said. So that causes strife.
The guy wanted to go to Tiberias, and she kicked him in wherever. Yeah, he was swift.
Understand?
Said, no, I want to go to a Fula. I don't want to go to Tiberias.
Yeah, Fula. Okay, I got you. Okay, I got you. That sounds good.
Before I got my carton of Marlboros, I picked it up in a Fula.
Oh, very nice. Okay. So, Rabbi, there's also, right, as we said, we're talking now here about your own wife. What's the other problem besides this that we just mentioned? There's also the issue, right, that when a person talks too much to his wife, it causes bitul Torah. What does that mean? Instead of studying Torah, he's wasting time talking nonsense, things which are superficial, gossiping, this kind of stuff, right, all kinds of things, or arguing with his wife, or she doesn't agree with him, they don't agree with each other, this and that, right, there's strife between them, all kinds of things.
So let everything go and let her get her way?
So
let her do. I mean, it sounds like she can do what she wants.
Just wave the white flag and give up, David. That's the idea. That's what we're saying, right? Don't
so
even.
How the Torah expects you? I'm not disputing the Torah, by the way. I'm just the Torah expects a man to be the master of the house.
Humble.
Sure.
And yet you're supposed to, by telling me I can't talk to my wife or disagree with her.
We didn't say like that. We didn't say you can't talk, but we said that. Keep it to a reasonable level. Don't start getting into things which are not necessary.
With an unreasonable human being.
That's why you shouldn't talk.
That's the whole idea, right? That's exactly it. That's the whole idea.
So you still talk. Yeah.
So, Rabbi, so what happens is that when a person also speaks with his wife too much, it causes bitul Torah. Instead of studying Torah, he's talking nonsense with his wife, arguing, and then it's right, they get to strife with each other as well, causes strife. So what happens is, right, it says in Pirkeh Avot, in the end, when a person does that, you know what happens? Right? In the end, he'll go to purgatory. He'll go to hell because of that. He'll go to Gehinnom, yeah.
Is there a hell?
That's what Gehinnom means hell. So why is he going to go to Gehinnom? Because he spoke too much to his wife? Also to other women? You know why? Because number one, as we said, it's going to cause bitul Torah, please. It's going to cause bitul Torah, number one. Right? And because of that, he didn't study Torah when he should have studied Torah. And this is the biggest sin. They say, by the way, you should know. What's the greatest mitzvah in the Torah? The greatest mitzvah is to study Torah. What's the greatest sin? Is to not to study Torah. The greatest sin is not to study Torah. Bitul Torah. When a person has time to study, and he's doing nonsense, wasting his time hanging around, going here, going over there, surfing the web, doing all kinds of inconsequential.
Sitting in Dunkin' Donuts and BSing nonsense? Excuse me.
Excuse me. Okay, I'm sorry. Excuse you. Excused. You're excused. Okay. That's the idea of a time. So what happens is that when a person likes to talk to women, and all the more so, by the way, we talked about his own wife. All the more so if it's somebody else's wife, or it's a single girl, he has no business with her. Nothing to do with her at all. Right? No business with her. He's not going to marry her. He's already married somebody else. or he's just it's not relevant to marry this kind of woman. So therefore, in a case like that, it's the sin is even greater. You're just talking.
Even if it's
Yeah.
peaceful. Even if
Yeah,
it's,
making like small talk, with ladies.
I see.
This is what takes a person to Gainam.
Mark, what did I tell you? I am not interested in small talk with women. I'm not interested to hear what they have to say. They're all bird brains.
So then, right? Let me ask you a question, right? I ask you a question. If all this we said, right, which was pretty, severe stuff, right? So then, what should a person do, right? How should he speak to his wife, or how should he speak to other women?
Just tell her, do whatever you want. Leave me alone.
Here's a checkbook. Here's a checkbook, and take it and go.
But my problem is, why doesn't the Torah just tell us straight out?
Yeah.
There's nothing to talk to them about. They can't teach you anything.
What
They're
is
all
the
bird
purpose?
brains.
What is their purpose?
Yeah.
So you see, it's not doesn't go that far. It's not so severe like that, So then, what should a person talk about with his wife, or with other women? Right? We have to understand.
Dinner,
If
breakfast.
you're telling me don't do this, so then the question is, what should I do? What should I do? That's the question, right? You know what the answer is over time? A person should, with his wife, first of all, should talk practical issues that have to do with the family, with the children, right? What's going to be here? Where are we going? Where this? Practical stuff that needs to be talked about in the family. You cannot go without that, right? You have to talk to your wife about these things, practical issues about the family, right? Also, right? If you want to be a good husband, right?
Shopping.
Always, right? Give compliments to the lady, right? Tell her how beautiful she is, how nice she is, how lovely she is, right? And tell her all these beautiful things, right? Compliments will get you everywhere, right? So you should say compliments to the wife. That's a great thing to say. You never lose with that. Believe me, it's a no loss situation. It's always a win. You understand? Or right, saying some words of love, some romantic words. Nice. You understand? You should do that. But as long as she's not a nida, right? If she's a nida, you shouldn't speak romantic things to her. It's something else, right? We're talking about after she went to the mikveh, she came out. Now let's be romantic with her. Very nice.
She's clean.
That's also good. Also, another thing that a person should speak with his wife, you know what it is? Divrei Torah. Always a woman likes to hear Divrei Torah from her husband. Her Torah really comes more from the husband than anybody else. She's not hanging around with rabbis, going to the lectures and that. She's at home most of the time, So she wants to hear Divrei Torah from her husband, and there's nothing better than that. You should know, by the way. When you have Torah discussions, and they can be deep discussions also, women really love that, to hear from their husband, because their husband is everything for her, that's her world. Her world is her husband, So the person has to sit with his wife, especially on Shabbat, She's doing Shabbat meal at night. She wants to hear some Divrei Torah from you, It's going to be so nice. The whole family is going to hear your children, and it's going to sanctify the whole home, This is the idea. So a person should always, every Shabbat night at least, right? You should prepare some Divrei Torah, something, have something up his sleeve, bring it to the house and say something nice to his wife. They're going to love that, they nothing better than that. So you can, when it comes to talking Torah, by the way, you can talk all night if you want, no problem with that, because Torah lo mekabel tumah, you know what that means? The Torah never becomes defiled. It's always sanctified. So there's never too much when it comes to Torah. It's always good. So no end to it, right? Go until the whole night, until the morning, if you want. No problem. With that, you'll never go wrong. That's the idea of it. Okay, you get the idea. Very good. So when it comes to those things, a person should say to his wife these kinds of things. We're not talking about that they should be totally silent to each other. That's not the idea, right? Also, I want to tell you something interesting. Okay, we should talk about this too, yeah. So it says like this, right? Yoshua ben Perachia ben Itai Arbeli, Kiblu mehem. Yoshua ben Perachia says, right? Yoshua ben Perachia says, Aseh lecha rav, right? What does that mean? That a person should have a rabbi. This is the obligation of every Jew. Why should you?
Man.
Okay, if you think so, I don't know. I can't tell you. Okay, if you think so.
We're here.
Okay, I guess so.
Teaching us.
Okay, if you believe that, whatever. If you believe it, you believe it. I guess I must have fooled you. So, why should a person have a rabbi? Because there are things in life where he is not sure what to do. Is this allowed to do like this according to the Torah, halacha? So, who are you going to ask? You're just going to rely on your own guesswork? You're going to guess? Oh yeah, I think it's okay. What makes you think that? Which books did you open? Where did you check? Which poskim did you check? Did you look in the Shulchan Aruch? You look in the Rambam? You looked where did you look that you find these things? Where? So a person always has to have a rabbi. By the way, this also applies to the rabbi himself. The rabbi also should have a rabbi. You know what I mean? Because there's always somebody bigger than you that knows better than you. In most cases. You know what I mean? So therefore, a person should always have, no matter he's a rabbi or regular Jew, average Joe, or he's a learned, somewhat learned, or more learned, whatever it is, everybody has to have a rabbi. What does that mean? That when you have a doubt about something, so you have to have an address to go to, and say, listen, rabbi, pick up the phone, rabbi, what's going on with this? Is it allowed? Not allowed? This is the job of the rabbi. If he can't help you with that, what do you need a rabbi like that for? What is just to take your money? Take your money, right? Yeah, donations. Only for that he's your rabbi. But when it comes to teaching the Torah, he's not your rabbi. What kind of thing is that, right? What kind of rabbi is that? Understand? So a person has to have a rabbi who can give him Torah and not just take his money. That's not the idea. You know what I mean? That's the whole idea. Right? And then it says, right, some other thing also, which is similar to this. Kadeh lecha chaver, right? Also, besides having a rabbi, a person should have a chaver. So what's a chaver? Right? In Hebrew, chaver means friend. So what are we talking about? We're talking about a chavruta. That he studied Torahs with him. He has somebody who can sit down on a regular basis, every day, right, or once a week or twice a week or whatever, and they study Torah together. Yeah. So here, right, it's an amazing thing, right? It says aseh lecharav, but when it says chavruta, it's kaneh lecha chaver, right? So aseh means to get a rabbi, get a rabbi, but kaneh means to buy. When it comes to chavruta, even buy somebody. What does that mean? Even if you have to pay the guy, he won't learn for you for free, right? Even if he says, you know what, I want money from you. Can you pay me? My situation is dire. I need some cash funds. I need some funds, right? Transfer of funds, right? Yeah, exactly. I need some mullahs, So even if you can't find anybody to study free, so you should pay, because why? Because having somebody to learn Torah with is so important that you should be willing to pay for that. The truth is, by the way, that the Torah should not be a money issue. It should come for free. That's what the Chazal say in the Midrash, right? It says in the Midrash, just like on Har Sinai, we got the Torah for free. We didn't pay over there, right? There wasn't any money machines over there, cash machines, or some credit card, swipes. Hakadosh Baruch Hu gave us the Torah for free. So it says in the Midrash, right? Just like you receive the Torah for free, you should also give it for free to other people. What does that mean? Practically speaking, that means that if a person can survive without taking a fee for teaching, he should not take a fee. If he can't survive, he's allowed to take. Okay, fine. You have no other income. He's allowed to take.
The graves, they want
He's allowed to take if he has no other income. But if he has a nice income, he's doing good, fine. Everything is good. So now, what do you want to take? You want to take a fee because what? You want to get richer? This is not allowed. This is a practical halakha I'm talking about, right? Unfortunately, a lot of people don't understand this. They don't realize that if you already have parnasah, I'll give you an example, by the way, right? That Moren Rabbeinu Maran, my rabbi, when he was giving the lectures that he gave, hundreds of lectures all over the country, all over the world, never took money for these things. And generally speaking, never took money for any of them. One time, what happened was, right, that his son, Rabbi Yitzchak, who's now the chief rabbi of Israel, right, Rabbi Yitzchak. So one time he was invited to give a class somewhere in Israel. So, boondocks, some faraway town. It is, right? There's a lot of over there. There's a lot of villages and little towns there, little tinsy towns over there. They come and tell you, "Oh, Rabbi, come! We want to hear a lecture from you." They invite you. When you're famous, you get invited everywhere. That's what happens, right? So what happened was that one time, right, there was one guy who was to give lectures to the boondocks places. So he comes to Rabbi Yitzchak, the son of the rabbi, and tells him, he says, "Can you do me a favor?" He says, "Tonight I can't give a lecture over there. I have to go somewhere. Can you take my place? Fill in for me." So he says, "You know what? Not only that, you're going to get money because they pay also. It's a paying job. So you're going to get paid whatever it is, right? $800, whatever, 800 shekels, whatever it was, right? Right? Whatever it is that they pay over there." So he came to the rabbi. He told him, he said, "This rabbi told me I should go take his place and give a lecture over there in the boondocks over there, in some place over there." So the rabbi told him, and he tells the rabbi, he says, "You know what? He also said I'm going to get paid for that." So the rabbi told him, "You're not allowed to take him for that money. Don't take money for that lecture." So Yitzchak said, "Why not? The rabbi gets it over there. He's giving it to me, for taking his place, for being a substitute, bring a sub." So he says, "No." He says, "You already have now parnasah. You're a Rosh Yeshiva. You have a salary, right? Since you have a salary and you're doing okay, he says, you're not allowed to take money for the lecture." That's what he told him.
Don't need it.
Halakha, it's halakha. Can you imagine such a thing like this? So you see that these have rules that there's.
You're so poor.
Since he mentioned this, right? What does it say in Pirkeh Avot about that? Right? It says Ezo Ashir, right? Hasameach bechelko. Right? What does that mean? Who is considered to be a wealthy man? You know what it is? Hasameach bechelko. You know what that means? He's happy with his lot. What does that mean? That whatever Hashem gave him, he's happy with that. He's not seeking out more, all kinds of other things, all kinds of alternative, income. You're doing okay, right? You're doing fine. So if you're happy with that, you're considered to be rich. You know why? Because it's for you. It's like perfect. You have perfect life. You're not looking for anything else. You understand? So if your mentality is like that your life is perfect the way it is, and you're doing fine, so then you're considered to be a rich man. You're a wealthy man. You're a tycoon. You understand? It's all in the mind. That's all idea. You know what I mean? Because when a person is like greedy, and he's always like, oh, I'm lacking, I want more, I want more, I want more. Never it's enough for you. It's never enough for you. So then you're not considered to be rich. You know why? Because even if you're a millionaire, but you're always like, you feel like you need more. It's like a sickness, You never got enough. Always more. What do you need so much for? So a person like that, right, is like, it's a psychology, So being wealthy is all in the mind. It's how you feel about yourself. That's the idea.
About communism and socialism.
Okay, speak to AOC about that. Bernie, right? I'll go to Bernie, right. Okay, very good. You got the idea. So, also, right here we have another thing. Right? Another interesting thing, which means that what it tells you, Pirkeh Avot, you should judge everybody favorably. Your fellow Jew. Right? Always judge them favorably. Right? So what does that mean? If you see a Jew doing something which doesn't look so kosher, looks a little bit suspicious, you know what I mean? So try to figure out a way to judge him in a favorable manner. What does that mean? Oh, maybe you know what? Maybe this guy's doing it because he has a special situation. Yeah, right. He has some kind of a problem, got some kind of a issue that he has to deal with, and this is the reason why he's doing what he's doing. I'll give you an example, right? For instance. Let's say, right, a person comes to synagogue on Shabbat, right? And so what happens, right? He's sitting there, right, with his prayer book like this, open, and all of a sudden, right, starts ringing, right, a nice tune, out of his pocket. Dun, 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 right? His telephone went off, So, I came to the shul with the telephone, and it's also open, the telephone, even worse, right? So this guy, is making like a mockery out of Shabbat, like that, coming with his telephone on Shabbat. So if a person, right, looks at this guy, you can judge him several different ways. You can say, oh, this man, he's a desecrator of Shabbat. He's a Rasha, Ubeduria, Rasha. He's a Rasha, he's a wicked man. But if a person has a little bit of imagination, he can paint a nice story for this guy, right? You can give him a nice excuse. What does that mean? Oh, you know what? Maybe he has somebody sick in the family, and they're in the hospital now. And he needs to have the phone in order to get a phone call, just in case, right? He has to go there for take him to the hospital, right? Take him out of the hospital, right? Exactly, things like this, you understand? Or let's say a person is like, Hatzalah, he works for the, the ambulance. So a person like that, he can be called any second. So he has to have a phone all the time, So what do you expect this guy to do, right? He's going to come to the shul without a phone? He's going to have a phone all the time, So try to judge him favorably. You know what I mean? Try to find some way to judge him in a favorable light. That's the idea. But when we say this, Rabotai, we have to know one thing, right? One caveat has to be observed over here. So the question is like this, right? The Chazal asked regarding this dictum that we just mentioned, to judge everybody favorably. Who are we talking about? What kind of Jew are we talking about, right? Because the truth is, in Judaism, we have three types of Jews, basically. Three categories. There, right? Tzaddik, righteous person, right? Rasha, wicked, right? And Benoni, right? What is Benoni? In the middle, 1 foot over there, 1 foot over there. You know what I'm talking about, right? So, right, you understand, right? The middle guy, right? The median guy, right? So the question is, when we talk about judging people favorably, which category are we talking about? By the way, you should know that these three categories, right? The rabbis tell us, there's the Hebrew, there's a word called tzibur. What does tzibur mean? Community, right? The community that comes to the synagogue or whatever, or anywhere, it's called the tzibur. That's what it's called, right? Now, if you take in tzibur, there's three letters, right? Tzaddik, that's tzaddik. Bet is benoni, in the middle, right? Resh, rasha. So the rabbi used to tell us, right? Every community has tzaddikim, has middle guys, and has rashaim. That's the idea. You understand? There's no such thing like that community. Everybody's tzaddik. Everybody's a rasha. No such a thing like that. There's also middle guys over there. Interesting, right? But anyway, right? The question is like this: when we say that a person should be judged favorably, who are we talking about? If you're talking about a tzaddik, so there's no novel idea over here, right? This is obvious. Why? Because a tzaddik, everything he does is l'shem shamayim. It's for the sake of heaven. You know, if he does something, he's always thinking about, oh, you know, how can I do this halacha? How can I uphold this Shulchan Aruch and this Rambam and this poskim over here? You know, that's his whole life is centers around that. You know, so what do you think? A tzaddik is going to do something wrong? So you should assume everything he does is for the sake of heaven, even if it looks suspicious. That's obvious. I don't need to tell you that. Okay? That's not a big chidush. It's not a novel idea. What about Rasha, right? So Rasha doesn't apply to him. Why? Because Rasha, we assume that everything he does is for the bad. You know, when a person is ubeduri, Rasha, you know, we assume that everything he does is for some kind of sinful idea. You know, some kind of sinful purpose. Because that's his whole life. His whole life is sin. You know. Rashak ubeduri, you know, the person who's a sinner, you know how it is, right? They don't keep nothing. You know, most of the things that they think it's like a joke, the Judaism is a joke, everything is a joke then. You know, this guy, you know. So if he's a Rasha like that, everything he does is suspicious. You know, we say, oh, this guy, you see what he's doing? Suspicious guy, huh? Yeah, so for sure, right, a person is not allowed to judge a Rasha favorably and say, oh, he's probably doing something good. Because we assume that he's doing something bad. That's his whole, it's a presumption. So then who are we talking about? So we're talking about the Benoni, right? The middle guy. You see, that's the whole thing. That's the big chidush. That's the lesson over here. If a person is a Benoni, you know, 1 foot over here, 1 foot over there, right? These guys, you know. So these guys, we're never really sure what they're doing, you know, what they're up to. I mean, sometimes on the good side, sometimes on the bad side. You never know. 50-50, you know. It's like a toss of a coin, you know. You never know what's going to come up. This side, that side, heads, tails, right? So therefore, here, right, we're doing him a favor. What does that mean? That even though it could be that he's doing something bad, but since he's in the middle, 50-50, more or less, right? So we have a mitzvah to judge him favorably, right? Exactly, yeah. Judge him favorably, you know. So then why? Why should we judge him favorably? Maybe we should just say, I'm not really, I don't know. You know why? Because since he's a Jew, he's your brother, he's your fellow Jew, so therefore give him the benefit of the doubt. You know, this is called Ahavat Yisrael, to love your fellow Jew. So right? This is a form of loving him. Always, David, always. Always. No matter what. No matter what.
Rabbi, didn't you tell me years ago when you first started this?
Here it comes now. Here it comes. You ready for this?
Usually,
I don't know.
yeah, no, usually
They're going to run through the door.
No, seriously. The people, the Jews that suffer the most in this world are the Benonis. You know, when they can't find themselves. You know, one day they're doing this, the next day they're observant, one day they're that, you know. Because the Torah tells you, you told me, if you're going to be a Rasha, at least live it up in this world, do whatever you do, you know, and you won't worry about the next world, what happens to you in the next world. But you're at least living up in this world, right?
I got you.
Didn't you tell me that?
Something like that. Yeah, something like that. Yeah, maybe a little bit, you know, with the time it gets a little bit distorted sometimes. You know, these kinds of things.
Some holy water.
You know what it is, right? You know how it is. So the point is, Rabbi, that this is also reflecting a dictum, you know, one of the greatest general rules that we have in the Torah, which is what? Right? You have to love your fellow Jew like yourself, right? That's the idea. You have to love your fellow Jew like yourself. And this is the reason why we do this. We give him the benefit of the doubt because we should love him. It's a form of love, you know. But you know, the reason why we don't give it to Rasha is because we're not crazy, you know. Like, you know, we don't want crazy love, you know, irrational love. That's not called love, right? That's like more like, you know, you're like a little bit abnormal, whatever. But when a person is in the middle of the road, so to love him like that, to give him the benefit of the doubt, it's a form of love. So every Jew, right? The main idea in Judaism is to love your fellow Jew like you love yourself. That's the idea. All the rest is just, you know. Right, exactly. It's all dressing, just side points, you know, little details. All the rest is details.
You know,
That's the idea.
I had a boss who's a Japanese boss. He's my boss. And you know what he says?
Yeah.
Don't make excuses.
Chazak u'baruch Rabotai. Thanks for coming. Baruch Adonai le'olam, amen ve'amen. Laila tov.
Good night to
2016,
Yes.
E350.